Okay. Okay. Before I start, just a couple of things. One is no quiz tomorrow, um, but I will be just presenting a little bit more on this because I want to make sure you have all the information you need to do it. So instead of a quiz, you're going to hear me talking at you for about 15 minutes. So, but that it'll still be on Zoom. Just um, yeah, that's. Okay, so we're delving into, in this case, today we're going to talk about how to manipulate an existing database. So the workhorse on this is something called the select statement, and it has a number of different options. And the fancy of which is something called join. So that's the reason for this little um, sort of database nerd humor. Okay, so, and then the other workhorse for that works with the select statement is the result set. And then other things that I'm not sure that the book goes into as much detail as I would like is that there's well, you understand the concept of metadata. You know, sort of meta is kind of a so metadata is like kind of data about something. So database metadata is data about the database that you're looking at, and it has a lot of information. In particular, if you're connecting to a database and you want to know, okay, what are the tables and what are the columns in the tables, then the database metadata will give you information about that. The other important metadata class is the result set metadata, and as its name suggests, it is metadata about a result set. So all that will hopefully become clear as we kind of get into this. So the select statement has a lot of different options. We're really only going to touch on a few of them. These are the ones that I most of the time I've found just for my use, just a plain old select statement is kind of does the trick for me. Where my main applications of this are in models where the important information to run the program is contained in one of these databases. And the two that I've worked with mostly have been Access databases, and that's sort of by coercion because I don't particularly care for it, and SQLite, so which is what we're talking about here. All of these, or most of the things here, can be applied to whatever database that you're using. So, the book mentions sort of MySQL, which is, again, just an excellent open source database. Even Microsoft Access is kind of usable as long as you're careful. And so the nice thing about JDBC, the Java Database Connectivity, is that all of this is agnostic as to what database you're connecting to. And all is most. There are a few places where, because SQL is not 100% standardized, there are some places where specific databases have slightly different commands. One example is, if you remember in the book, they mention that a column can be auto-incremented. So if you have like an integer column, auto-increment means that when you create a new one, it just automatically kind of goes to the next one. And actually, they use pretty kind of a one-based thing, similar to the one that we did for classes. If you remember, we had a static variable that sort of kept incrementing, and every time you instantiated a new one, you set the ID to that static thing. So I don't know how the databases do it, but it has to be something very similar. So the MySQL, but auto increment is not one of the standard SQL commands. So MySQL says auto underscore increment, and SQLite is auto increment one word. So just have to be a little careful with that. But other than that, almost all of the other, and that has to do with defining the tables, creating the tables. Once the tables are created, pretty much everything that I'll talk about today is going to be applicable regardless of what kind of database you're connecting to. So that's one of the nice things about having an abstraction such as JDBC. So the main example we'll be working with is this Chinook database. This, for whatever reason, is one of the standard examples that are out there. And as you can see, what's nice about it, it's actually simple enough to kind of look at and be able to kind of figure out what's going on. And so this is keeping track of various artists, albums for those artists, tracks of those artists, playlists from them, and then they're selling them to, they have customers, then they have employees who sort of support customers, and then they have we're not going to get into all that sort of stuff. For me, and if this were more of if we had more time, or if this was kind of more of a database-oriented course, we could kind of spend some time looking at the whole thing. But for our purposes, I'm going to mostly kind of look at what this top thing is. But so where can I get such a thing? Well, actually, if you do a Google search, you can sort of find it, but you don't have to do that, because if you go to the resources of the Sakai site, you will see that it is right there. And let's see, are you downloading? Okay. So it's in a zip file because it's fairly big. As he's thinking, yeah, it was about a megabyte. So that is that big or is that small? Who knows? So because it's zip, we need to unzip it. So let's go find it, and there it is. On a Mac, I can just double-click it. If you're on Windows, you can double-click it and then extract somewhere. And so basically here, what I want to do is I want to, I want to include this in the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's copy it and put it into my code here, which is in there. So what I've done is I've pasted it into the input area of the class code NetBeans project. So you can see it right here in the input directory. And it's in the input because we're going to be using it as input, not for output. Okay, so we'll take a closer